So this is like in the middle of a Sikha, the Rebbe, from a Fabrengen, Shabbos Parshas Chai Yisara, Mevarchim Kislev, Tafshin Mem Vav. That's a little bit less than 40 years ago, about 37 years ago. And 36 years ago. 38 years ago. My math is not that great. But over here by this Fabrengen, the Rebbe was talking about the importance of Simcha and the connection of Simcha with Chodesh Kislev, with the month of Kislev. We're going to start from the second half of what the Rebbe was talking about. I'll just sum up some of the points that the Rebbe said at the beginning half. At the beginning of the Sikha, the Rebbe spoke about that the idea that the Chodesh Kislev finishes with a Yom Tov, which is Hanukkah, is something unique. There's no Jewish month on the calendar that finishes with a Yom Tov. Only the month of Kislev concludes with a Yom Tov. And a Yom Tov, we know, a Moyed is something that has to do with Simcha. Then the Rebbe goes on, and of course, that is the Chitzonius. That is the Nigla aspect, the revealed aspect that has to do with Simcha. Then there's the Pnimius. The Pnimius that has to do with Simcha is because it's the Chag HaGeula of the Alter Rebbe, Yutas Kislev. It's the Chag HaGeula of the Mittler Rebbe, Yud Kislev. And the whole idea, which is mainly about the Gilui of Chassidus. And Chassidus is connected with the idea of Simcha. As we know, the Rebbe speaks about, up till the time of Chassidus, the idea of Avodas Hashem was often primarily in the idea of Yira and Merirus and bitterness and a very severe type of Cheshbon HaNefesh. But Chassidus revealed and made it a cornerstone of Avodas Hashem, the idea of Simcha. So therefore, since the month of Kislev has to do with Yutas Kislev, which is the main time of Afotzes HaMayonis of Torah Chassidus, therefore, Kislev, B'Pnimius Einyanim, has to do with the idea of Simcha. So now, in the part of Sikha that we're going to start now, from Ois Ches, he starts going more in the practical, down to earth. And he starts addressing it to Amadabar, to a person literally standing by a Fabrengen, and he is thinking, does it have to do with me? It doesn't have to do with me, all of these things. So we're going to start from Ois Ches, which is the third paragraph on the bottom of the page. Here there's two more pages of this, not the whole Sikha. V'yesh lahoisif. By the words over there, v'yesh lahoisif. V'yesh lahoisif, shegam hadgashas inin ha-simcha, mitzad inyonei ha-pnimi shel chodesh Kislev, gilui Torahs Chassidus. In other words, the Rebbe said before that there's the Chitzonius Simcha that has to do with Chanukah, and the Pnimiistic message of the month of Kislev is the Simcha that has to do with the month of Kislev because it's the Gilui of Torah Chassidus. So the Rebbe says this: you don't need to be a big masculine Chassidus, you don't need to understand a lot. Hu inyan hamuvim bepashtus kol echad ve'echad miYisrael afilu pashut shebepshutim. Gam Yehudi pashut shebepshutim. Yodeya umargish shema'oz shezekeu Hashem yizbarach sheyaveh elav shluchai shliach shel nesida reinu oy shliach shluchai. It doesn't have to be directly someone that was sent by the Rebbe, but someone that was influenced by a shliach of the Rebbe. V'yisaper lo oides Torahs Chassidus ad shenasa chosid. So from then on, from when he was exposed to Chassidus because of someone that the Rebbe sent, or someone that the Shliach of the Rebbe sent, Hichnis hadavar chayis v'simcha b'chol inyonav, hat angehoben Leben mit Yiddishkeit, hu etchil l'chyot im Yadut, that the Yiddishkeit was something that's alive by him. וכפי שהדבר בא לידי ביטוי גם בכך שמנהגים ניגן של שמחה עד שיוצא בריקוד. The Rebbe always emphasizes this, that Simcha is not just something theoretical, but it's something practical also. Eli, you could pass over a copy to Yosef over here. So that the Simcha is not just something intellectually, it's an ideal, it's a philosophy, it's practical. He literally finds himself breaking out into song. He literally finds himself dancing because of it. U'ka'amur ein ze bestir lekach sheyoda inish benafshei mamodei u'matzavai. Every person knows who he is. And therefore, because he knows who he is, so he thinks to himself, and the Rebbe spoke about this earlier in the Sikha, I should be BeSimcha. I know that there's a lot of things that I'm still missing spiritually that I need to fix up. So the Rebbe says that doesn't make a difference. Yes, that's true. We know we have to work on ourselves, and we know there's things that we're not perfect, but it doesn't take away from the fact that we have to be BeSimcha. Since joy is staked into the heart from one side, and you can have the other thing in the other side, meaning a person can be a mixture of emotions. Just because you may not be happy with one thing, you could still be happy with something else. And the Rebbe gives a very practical, down-to-earth example. Gam kancher loy nasa dayin osher muflug begashmis v'alachas kam v'kava beruchnis. He doesn't say, since I'm upset, I'm not a millionaire, so when I get a bonus of $100, I'm not going to be excited. I'm still happy. V'loy oid, it could be that he's not an osher, but el shechoser etzla afilu binyanim shebchinas machsoira sheyachsaloy. If a person knows that he's missing things that he really needs, whatever it is, a person really needs something. He doesn't know where he's going to cover the mortgage this month. But L'Poyel, somebody came and gave him a gift. The gift is not going to help him cover the mortgage, but just because he's worried about the mortgage doesn't mean he's not going to be happy now that he got this gift. He's still going to be happy with that. So therefore, the Rebbe says, even though I might know that there's certain things about myself that I shouldn't be happy about, but there's so many other things that I can and I'm supposed to be happy about. So the Rebbe gives very, again, down-to-earth examples what's supposed to bring me to Simcha. Ein tzorech l'chapes klal. Yehudi poshut shebepshutim she'ein shayach afilu l'limud chumash yedea mashakasav baschos hasiddur. And the Rebbe always emphasizes that the siddur is something hashaveh l'chol nefesh. Chumash, you have to be a ben Chumash l'mikro. Mishnah, you have to be a ben Eser. Gemara, you have to be a ben Chamesh Esrei, etc. Siddur is for everybody. Doesn't make a difference. A big Talmud Chacham, a simple person, Siddur is for everybody. At the beginning of the Siddur it says, Modeh Ani lefanecha cholu shechzarta bim nishmasi. And when do we say this? V'teikif miyad kishener mishnasai oid lefnation oid l'yadav lefnation maspik lachshev. So he has no time now to think. His brain is still in the fog of sleep. He's still verschlafen. They say in Yiddish. I see there's a lot of Yiddish speakers over here. So the Rebbe says, think about it. When I say moida, when I'm saying thank you, that means I'm appreciating something. I'm happy with something that I got. That would be any time when you say thank you. If you say thank you for someone passing you a cup because you want to pour some l'chaim, so for sure that thank you means that you're appreciative. How much more so when the thank you is something that has to do with a klolistic thing. It's a call nivra v'nivra gam einem yudim la'avdil, that they're alive. So what could be a greater appreciation, what could be a greater thanks than the thanks for being alive? Asher baladi chas v'sholem, without being alive, lo shayachim kol shara inyanim. So as soon as I get up and I'm saying Modeh Ani Lefanecha, that I'm alive, so that's the greatest thing, that's the greatest gift I can have. So already I have at the beginning of the day the greatest simcha that I could have. Hachel ma'bracha baruch hu la'anoisn la'sach v'vino la'havchem b'yom v'loyla v'lifnei za baruch hu la'antil yadayim ad lebracha baruch hu la'hamavir sheina me'enois num ma'afapoy agoyim l'chasadim toivim la'am Yisrael. So from the fact that we are thanking Hashem for all these things, again, thanks means that you appreciate that you got all of these things. If you're appreciating, so you're happy. You just now got something that you didn't have before. So asher kol inyan bracha v'aydah kshurim inyan shel simcha kanal. So that's the Rebbe says. Regardless of anything else that might be going on, every single morning we have a whole list of things that we are thankful for. If we have a whole list of things that we are thankful for, so we have a whole list of things what to be BeSimcha for. Umuvan shalom roisha simcha b'chol yonim elu. He davar ha'pashut harei b'poyel nizgala ha'davar ha'deiteres achsidus. Like the Rebbe also mentioned earlier in the Sikha, that even though in previous generations there was all types of avodah, but Teres Achsidus was the one that emphasized the idea of simcha. Sharei b'doiris shalifnei zeh hoise ikar avodah b'kavayira v'amriris. Ela shal achrei she'inyan zeh nizgalai de Teres Achsidus niten lahasber zois gam b'pashtus ba'oifen amuven afil l'pashat sheb'pshutim. So the Rebbe says a very interesting thing. On the one hand, it's very obvious. Any simple mind can appreciate and understand why we have to be BeSimcha. Just looking at the beginning of the Siddur, there's a whole shopping list of why we have to be BeSimcha. Still in all, it took Chassidus and the Gilui of Teres Chassidus to bring this out and make it obvious for us. Without the Gilui of Teres Chassidus, it wasn't so obvious. For whatever reason, it wasn't something that a Pashat Shebepshutim took it for granted. So the Rebbe says further, Oistes, Hamurim Mikol Amar Le'el, Shebevoi Chodesh Kislev. And then the Rebbe says, Hachel Shabbos Mevarchim HaChodesh. The Rebbe, the beginning of Fabrengen, this is also Shabbos Mevarchim Kislev. So the Rebbe said, all the Inyanim of Kislev don't just begin in Kislev itself, but already begins in Shabbos Mevarchim. And the Rebbe will explain it later. Yesh Lahoisif Be'inyan HaSimcha Be'yeser Seis U'Be'yeser Ois. Ba'oifen the Marbin BeSimcha. So the Rebbe borrows a term that's usually used concerning Adar. About Chodesh Adar, we know it says, Mishanichnas Adar, Marbin BeSimcha. Instead, the Rebbe takes this and uses it for Kislev, and says that Kislev, starting from Shabbos Mevarchim Kislev, has to be Marbin BeSimcha. Ad l'ribe gadol b'yaiser chol. V'oidin b'zem, and here is a very important thing that the Rebbe emphasizes over here. What do we accomplish with the Simcha? Simcha is an important thing, and Chassidus emphasized how important and how valuable Simcha is, but the Rebbe says Simcha is also a great tool to overcome all the things that can bring the opposite of Simcha. Shaydei Isafa BeSimcha mevatlem es kol ha'inyanim habilti ritzuyim u'bagdam hasiba lakach she'ikar hadgash al avoda BeSimcha nizgalsa b'doros ha'achronim davke hi mipnei she'b'doros ha'achronim nitvasef yoser b'le'um hazeh choshech ha'golus chulu v'lechein kedei levatl zois yesh lahoisif oid yoser BeSimcha shel Torah u'BeSimcha shel mitzvah. The Rebbe says a very interesting thing. Usually the Rebbe will use this concerning the question about why Chassidus was revealed in the later generations. If Chassidus is so important, if Chassidus is so valuable, if Chassidus is so holy, why wasn't Chassidus around 500 years ago? Why wasn't it around 1,000 years ago in the times of the Rishonim, of the Gemara, of the Mishnah, and so on? So one of the explanations the Rebbe gives is because Chassidus came to counter Dafke, the latter darkness. Dafke, because things are so dark towards the end of Golus, that's why we need to have Chassidus to overcome it. So the Rebbe says that in the same way, it's one of the major teachings of Chassidus. One of the major teachings of Chassidus is the idea of Simcha. So that's why it's so important to emphasize Simcha now, because Simcha is the way to overcome things that are darker now than they were any other time. And even in the last generations of B'doros Achronim Gufa, Kechol Shahoylach V'Goyver Achoshcha Golus, Yesh Lahoysif V'Yoyser B'Inyan HaSimcha Ka'amr Le'il, Shebizmanei Shal Baal Shem Tov Nitvasif B'Inyan HaSimcha Legabizmanei Shal HaArizal. And the Rebbe over there in the Sikha spoke about that, even though the Arizal spoke about how important it is to be BeSimcha, still in all, page 604. Even though it's so important to be BeSimcha, still in all we find that Simcha was not such a big deal. There was a Talmud of the Arizal that used to say Nachem every single day. In other words, a tefillah of Tisha B'Av, he used to say every single day. So even with the Arizal speaking about the importance of Simcha, it wasn't down to earth yet by them. Even though the Baal Shem Tov encouraged and spoke about Simcha, but the Alter Rebbe's generation had more about Simcha than the times of the Baal Shem Tov. Ad lechoshech kafel umechupel b'dereinu zeh, doira achron shal ha-Golus, she'oz nespars mudarim elu oides goydel ha-tzoyrech b'inyan ha-Simcha, ha'idei kvoitu jes moirech ha'mi-admur nesidareinu, ba'oifen shal ha-fotze, that the Frierdiker Rebbe didn't just talk about Simcha, but he made it well known because he printed it and he sent out sichas all over. Gam b'jargon, jargon means even in Yiddish. So in many different languages, it speaks about the importance of Simcha. By the way, for those who don't have copies, you can look it up on your phone, on your on the WhatsApp that we sent out for the shir. It's very interesting. Usually, when it says it says it concerning Zeh Keli Van Veu, concerning the Gilui Elikus, by Kriyas Yamsuf and so on. Here the Rebbe uses an expression that's usually used in the positive concerning L'umazeh, the opposite of Kedusha. That the Klippa is still very powerful and still very much revealed, to such a degree that you can point with your finger and show, and you can see the Klippa openly. Mamish, we're seeing it now in this generation, unbelievable, where all the anti-Semitim are crawling out of their holes in their caves that you never even knew and you never even thought about, that here in America you're going to have all these chaleres are all around. We see it now begoli. All those people that we thought were friends, you could look and point and show this is a klippa gedolah. So therefore, harezu eichache sha'asimcha sha'hoisa ad ata eina maspika k'dei levatlas ha'metzias delumazah. As much simcha as the Arizal brought, as the Baal Shem Tov brought, as the Alter Rebbe brought, as the Frierdiker Rebbe brought, as the Rebbe brought, still not enough. Because you can still point to the klippa and say zeh. And then the Rebbe says, it's not just that the L'umazah from before is b'toikef b'goli, but the L'umazah, the klippa, is even worse. V'alachas kam v'kam, kasheroim shebetkufa achroinam, yeshna his gabras b'L'umazah. Loy rak shadayin loy nis battle. Harei loy zubelvad she'en li spoil mechol amanias v'kuvim. A person's going to think it's a terrible time. Klippas are like so strong. Maybe I should be a little bit more reserved and more b'meriris and more sad, and I should cry or whatever. So the Rebbe says, no. Ela adrabah, yesh lahoisif oidoisir b'chol inyani simcha. The Rebbe right away says in the bracket, simcha shel kedusha kemuven. Toich kedei shlilus ha'inyan, the klippas plishtim, kemavor b'dursh chassidus, parshas toilus, parshas hoichem likrei b'tfilas mincha. There is an idea in chassidus that says klippas plishtim, that means that from a sometimes a positive thing in Kedusha can become a yinikal chetzonim. So a person has to be in control of their simcha to only use it in a positive way and not to use it chas v'sholem in inyanim of klippas. And it has to be haisafish, be yeser seis, be yeser oiz, ka'amr, ba'oifen, the marbin BeSimcha has to be now. Upshita, and it's the Rebbe says it's a davar apashut, she yisifu b'chol yani simcha, kshurim b'myuchadim chodesh Kislev. Yemei Chanukah, like we said at the beginning of the Sikha, that the Rebbe said that the days of Chanukah, ulifnei say Yutes Kislev, and there's Yud Kislev, Vites Kislev, both the yard site and Yom Haledes of the Mittler Rebbe, V'alachas kam v'kama roish chodesh Kislev. How much we have to add in Simcha. V'lifnei say b'Shabbos Mevarchim chodesh Kislev, sheboin nimshechas toisef is bracha b'chol yan chodesh Kislev. It's called Shabbos Mevarchim. That means it gives bracha in everything having to do with Kislev. So if the entire month of Kislev is a month that has to be increased in Simcha, so already Shabbos Mevarchim Kislev, which is giving the bracha for the month of Kislev, for sure has to increase in Simcha.
That's this week?
That's this Shabbos, the Shabbos Mevarchim. Nois of ala bracha sheyesh b'mitzad in yonam hein, in addition to whatever bracha they have on their own. In other words, there's the bracha of Kislev on its own because it's a special month, and then there's what Shabbos Mevarchim Kislev does and adds a Tosefes bracha. So therefore, we have to have increase in Simcha. So now the Rebbe is going to really go even more into the nitty gritty, and he's going to talk about a person that's standing by the Farbrengen or listening to the Farbrengen or learning this, and he says, "It's not about me. It's talking about high people, great people, wonderful people, people like me." There's a big problem this generation, which is the opposite of the time when Chassidus was established. When Chassidus was first established, the big problem was people thought too highly of themselves. They were balagaiva. They had big egos. And that's what Chassidus had to counter. Our generation seems to suffer from the opposite. We have an inferiority complex. We believe that when I do something, I'm making a bracha. Who cares? I made a bracha and I didn't make a bracha. I said Krishma. Well, I'm a small person. Who am I? I'm insignificant. And the whole Chassidus talks about who am I and kula kamek lachshiv and I'm completely bottled. So what's to make a difference what I do? So one of the things that Rebbe is going to say, he's going to say there's this Chassidish Yetzer Hara that comes ahead and tells a person, yeah, you're going to be BeSimcha. Your Simcha is going to help anything. We're talking about the klippas are so powerful. And you think that your Simcha is going to help anything. So the Rebbe is going to talk about from both extremes. It's nice for everybody, but it's not talking to me. Aleph, Mekivin Shiyada, Inish Benafshim, Amadim Matzave, like we said before, I know what I am. Mistapik Ba'atzmai, Ima Kavana Game Love. The Lachur, Naniach Shekvar Yifal Atzmai Lies BeSimcha, Mati Ateela Shiyudi Kamoisi, but Nushal Simcha. I know who I am. I know I'm not the most Chassidish Yid, and maybe I'm not the most Frum Yid, and I have still a lot of things to do. So who says if I'm going to be BeSimcha, it's going to do anything? Beis. Le'idach, then there is a real Chassidisher Amalek that I was going to call it soon. Chassidus, especially Tanya, is very much about doing everything with an emes. What's called, in the times of the Rebbe Rashab, they called it being a pnimi, being real. Not doing things just externally and you're not really there. So he's saying, I don't feel simcha, so I should just sing and dance. I'm a pnimi. I want it to be real. Beis leidach kol inyane avoda toyin hu tzrichim lias boyfem pnimi. Mekiven shemesupek ba'atzmai im zoy simcha pnimi sachitzaynis. Any a day I'm tzarech lias BeSimcha. So the Rebbe tells him, put away all these discussions. Put away all these shtusim. Ubechein l'chol roish olav ladas shesafik begematria amolik. Why did the suffix come to him? Not that he should succumb to the suffix, not that he should give in to the doubt, but rather Kadesh lo yispol ma'asafik v'yivatli mekoil v'koil and k'b'duber le'el barucha, and if I bring it that year on Simcha story, the Rebbe spoke about it, that the purpose of Amalek and the purpose of Safik is to do even though I might have doubts. Because the Rebbe told us to do, that's enough. We don't need to start having all types of people pull him. How am I going to help? And I want to be real and everything. The Rebbe said, to overcome the darkness, I need to be BeSimcha. That's it. I got to be BeSimcha. End of story. The noise was, you do a pisgim, quite you said, more than Siderenu, she'evan aboichen. The litmus test, what they call in English. Ladas im achshav zui mitzad ha'kedusha mitzad shekeneged, himahim ha'teitzoyes b'negel l'poil. Sometimes we face a situation where we don't know if we are by a situation where we're supposed to do this or we're supposed to do that. And we don't know what we're supposed to do. So a person's supposed to figure out and think to themselves, what will be the outcome? What will be the result if I do A or I do B? And that is one of the best ways to determine what to do. So even though at the immediate choice he doesn't know if it's a good thing to do this or a better thing to do that, I'm talking about in Kedusha, is it going to add or Chashon detract in Kedusha? Look at what the outcome is. So the same thing that Rebbe is going to apply over here concerning the doubts that the person has about Simcha. Hasafik Shema is Safa BeSimcha Shal Mitzvah BeSimcha Shal Torah. Ein Mashiach say love. Lo Yav Yilidei Safa BeMaisa Dibur Machshava Binyan Kedusha. What is it going to bring? Ki'im Sheyuchal Lisham Menucha. If he has doubts about Simcha and he gives into those doubts, what's it going to mean? Okay, now I don't have to have that on my head. I can go to sleep calmly. I don't have to worry about it. But that's not his purpose, right? So therefore, from the results of your doubts, you could see how the doubts is something that's negative. And at most, there is a halacha that when you give tzedakah, you should give, except when it's tzedakah v'Eretz Yisrael. When it's all other types of tzedakahs, it comes, aniyah ircha comes before. So he's going to say, let me worry first about my own things, before I worry about saving the world through Simcha. ואחר כך יחשב כיצד לפתור הספק. והרימובן וגם פשוט שלאחרי שיכניס את רוישה בענייני פרנסו, כבר לא יישאר אצלי זמן פנוי לפתור את הספק, האם שייך לשמחה פנימיס. Because he's going to be so involved in his own making a living that he won't be able to decide, should I be BeSimcha, should I not be BeSimcha? So the Rebbe says, forget about the suffix. Forget about your questions. Put all these things aside. Umekivan shekain hare lachoil roish tzarich lakayim samaisa b'poyel amaisa or ikar keloymar lahoise b'simcha shel Torah b'simcha shel mitzvah b'poyel mamish. The next piece I'm not going to read inside, but the nekuda that the Rebbe is going to say in the next piece is that the question that he has about is it something that's pnimi or is it chitzoni, that has nothing to do with maisa b'poyel. Pnimi and Chitzoni has to do with Gan Eden. Is he going to get Gan Eden Elyon? That's when he has a pnimistic avodah. If he has only Chitzonistic avodah, so then he's going to get Gan Eden Atachten. But the Rebbe says, this world, we don't care about Gan Eden. This world, it matters just get the job done, which is being BeSimcha. And the Rebbe therefore says, and also Gan Eden, even Gan Eden Atachten is a nice thing also. It's only called Gan Eden Atachten in comparison to Gan Eden Elyon. So do Simcha, even though it's B'chitzonius, even though you don't feel it's real, even though you don't feel it's you should be BeSimcha anyway. Let's skip over to the next page, on 606. And then the Rebbe says in the third paragraph on the page, V'loi oid, the Rebbe says that Gan Eden Atachten is a wonderful thing. But El She'inyan the Gan Eden Shayach Gam Boilam Hazeh K'mayim Lam Chatira B'chayecha. A person can experience Gan Eden in this world. And the Rebbe explains what it means. Practically. Ve'ein inyan yotzim b'dei pshuti. What's it mean Gan Eden in this world? Matzav shal menucha mechala in yonim hamavalvelin. Ula dugmen yonim misim, taxes. Oy pachad mpnei eze pera adam shochel lasses davar bilti ratzi. That we see a lot of peri adam now out in the streets, Rachman litzlan, that you're worried about them doing certain things. Sometimes he's not just worried about a guy that has no free choice, but sometimes Allah filo Yehudi is worried about a Yid that might do something that he won't want to, that he doesn't like. Since a Yid has choice, so therefore he could think about doing something that he wouldn't ordinarily like. Simcha, like we said, will bring him to Gan Eden. But in Gan Eden, in this world, Ein malafachet klal minyanim bilti ritzuyim. Shekein misavil Gan Eden yeshno laat acherav ha'mesapeches kach shelo yicholim lachder sham minyanim bilti ritzuyim. So the Rebbe says, being BeSimcha is the best protection in this world from anything that can chas v'sholom try to hurt us. Being BeSimcha is the best protection for it. Amnam, yeshnem tzivui lasses majetzorach al pi derech hatevach meshkosav barach Hashem l'kecha b'chol asher. Skip the brackets. Aval la'achrei sheyehudi oises hamutel olav ein moken lefachad u'ledaigem. Shari davar baruch lo yonov lo yishon shoymi Yisrael. Hashem shemerech Hashem tzilcha yadi menecha. Hashem yishmatzeischa v'yecha me'at v'adoylom mishum mevin gam pashu shevapshutim shakadosh baruch hu ein ezakuk la'ezer v'siyua la'etza ketan lishmal Yehudi. As long as I did what Hashem wanted me to do, and I'm BeSimcha, that is the greatest protection. Befrat, the Rebbe concludes over there, Kasher Yehudi koilos atzmim matzibur kuloi, when he's BeSimcha together with other Yidden, Shaz Yeshne Indian the Henkel Kabir Lo Yimas, that it says that Hashem is not moyes in the tefillah of a tzibur. Keloimar, etzem inyan hashmira idea Kodesh Baruch Hu yachalias v'poel mamish gam kasher ein adavar nasa b'sever ponim yafis. Hashem could protect Kaviyachol without showing us a sever ponim yafis. V'zeu achidah shenifal ideza sheyehudi koilos atzmim matzibur. She'oz nifal inyan hashmira b'ofen de lo yimas v'adrabe b'sever ponim yafis ponim sheichos ponim meiris al derech hamavur b'negel l'chodesh el b'orpnei melachayim, that we have Hashem's revealed light and goodness to us. U'mekiva shekein, since we have Hashem protecting us and in a smiling way, Yachol kol echad ve'echad l'lechos lebetach darkei u'lahoysev b'chol inyanei Torah mitzvah v'yisafim yuchedes BeSimcha shel mitzvah v'simcha shel Torah ba'ofen da hoylech u'moysev v'oyer.